Hello, everyone. This is Eric Pennington, and welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast. We're glad that you've tuned in. A few things we wanted to tell you at the beginning of the show, and that's this podcast was created to be a tool to help you, primarily to discover and grow your EQ. Science and our own lived experiences confirm that the better we are at managing our emotions, the better we're going to be at making decisions, which leads to a better life. And that's something we all want. We're glad that you've taken out the time today to listen and hope that something that you hear will lead to a breakthrough. Hey, one last thing. We'd really appreciate a review on whichever platform you use to listen. And if you want to, leave some comments about what you heard today, as well as follow and subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode as we continue this journey. And with that, the show begins. So, Jeff, we're back again. We're still in the virtual mode. And I've been thinking about emotional literacy lately, and not in the sort of strict definition that we typically use for it. Hopefully, I'll draw some connection. But I'm going to talk about it through a lens of the physical cues that we get when we feel an emotion, right?
Good, very good subject.
Well, it's interesting. When I think about emotional literacy, I think it's the idea of getting to know something, right? And in this case, knowing an emotion. But I think it also it can be broader in the sense or widened to, okay, so when you feel frustrated, when that emotion comes, let's just say it that way, what's going on physically? Where do you feel it? What is the sensation? Is it tension in the back of your neck? Is it a sort of the sinking feeling in your stomach? Are there butterflies, as we've heard many times over time? And I know for me early on, I was probably in that camp that says, well, what difference does it make? what it feels like. And as time has moved on and wisdom has come, you start to understand that there is something to that, because as we know, Jeff, right, emotions are they're messengers. They're delivering data to us, right?
Yes.
And by the way, audience, today is not a sort of neuroscience 101 type. This is lived experience. That's where I'm going with this, right? And for me, Jeff, I know that when I feel that specific emotion and I get the sensation physically, it's a way in which my brain is enhancing the message, making the message clearer, and potentially slowing me down if I'm willing, right? And I think this is that wonderful pole of difference between reacting and responding.
Right.
When we think about reacting, right, there is the event, there's a thought, the emotion, and then immediate choice. When we think about responding, same flow, but the last part, there's a pause, there's a slowdown, and then a choice. What happens in that slowdown, what can be valuable or beneficial, is to be able to examine, okay, what is going on inside of me? You know, I feel the knot or I feel the tension, and therefore, okay. Now, I want to make one thing very clear, Jeff, and then I want to get your thoughts. Some out there might say, I don't always have enough time to examine. Granted, I get it. There's some things that come at you quickly, and you're going to have to, it's going to move. But what I find interesting, Jeff, is that in the beginning, you feel like you need an hour to get this all figured, right? Or to get this all digested and processed. But the better we get at this thing, this learnable skill of emotional intelligence, you might be amazed, not you directly, Jeff, because I know you know this, but you might be amazed at how fast you're able to process that data. right? Think of it as the semiconductor chip, right?
Yes.
You know, there's certain,
Quantum.
right? I mean, and it
Yeah.
really is. I think it's a great analogy because when you think about it, I'm a big Apple fan, so I use a MacBook Pro, and I'm on I believe it's the M4 chip. And obviously, part of Apple's marketing is, hey, this next generation is going to be able to process at a speed like you wouldn't believe, and you're going to have this and this and this. Well, I think that's what happens here as we continue to build the practice, strengthen the practice all around the model. We were able to process information much faster than maybe in the beginning when we weren't so familiar. But I'd love to get your thoughts on that, and then I want to kind of do a little exercise with you.
It's, we've talked about it before, but I've been involved in a prison ministry called Kairos forever and ever and ever.
Yep.
Which there's 10 talks that the team members give to the residents, the prisoners. And it's very organized. But the very first talk is called Choices, and in that talk, this was done years and years ago that they came up with this. They use those words exactly to react or respond when you're confronted with something. And so I've seen that grow in people, residents, prisoners that I've known for several years. How they talk about the very first thing you taught us on this weekend was something I use every day now.
Wow.
It's never brought up as being called emotional intelligence, but it is.
That's great. That's very powerful. So call it emotional intelligence, call it intelligence, emotional. As long as you're doing it. Yeah, as long as you're doing it, right? And I think that I would just say to our audience is that don't allow yourself to like critique where you're at today if this is new to you or if it's something that you've just begun, because it could sound like, oh, I'm deficient because I always react, Jeff. Well, you're probably reacting because that's how your brain has operated forever. You're learning something new. You're changing to a different neural pathway, right? And I just want to encourage folks, if you just transfer yourself and compare yourself, you probably are going to say, I'm deficient and there's something wrong with me. Instead, I would recommend that you go, well, building a practice takes time. And I think, Jeff, we have used this before on the show, is that if somebody out there decides they're going to build a home, the first thing that happens, right, or one of the first things that happens, they're going to dig a hole. And I don't know if you've seen that. It looks like a total mess. Okay, but eventually it starts to form. Concrete gets poured in the hole, and then somebody comes with the wood, and then you've got these, I forget, the frame starts to come to pass, and then there's drywall. You don't build a house from hole, and then the next day you have a house with rooms and carpeting, right?
No.
It doesn't work that way. So let's be empathetic to ourselves that it's a journey to building this practice and that faster processing speed. So, Jeff, what I'd like to do is a little exercise to kind of illustrate the physical sensation piece and how it can come into play.
Okay.
What I'd like you to do, and I'll play along with you, I'd like you to, for a moment, think about maybe the last couple of days, 3 emotions that you've felt in the last few days. And as I said, I'm going to give you just a little time to think about it. I'm going to refresh myself on mine, and then we'll come back together and I'll guide you in something.
Okay. I think I know what I want to say.
Okay. All right. So would you go ahead and name the 3 for the audience?
Do you want the emotion or what caused the emotion?
No, I just want the emotion.
Okay. Anger.
Okay.
Joy/relief, and then anger again. Okay.
Okay. So anger showed up twice, and then joy, relief somewhere in the middle. Okay, great. So the first time that you felt the anger, do you
Mhm.
remember what the physical sensations were like for you?
For me, that this is relatively easy. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but uh, I'm a feeling from my gut person. And that's also
Okay.
where stress comes. So when I get angry, the first thing is that tightens, that gets uncomfortable. And from there, it
Mhm.
just kind of radiates out. There's that. That's the biggest thing for me is I feel that right there, that, there's something going on.
Okay.
Uh,
So you would you say that typically whenever you're angry, that's what it
yeah.
manifests?
That's
Okay.
that's one of the very first signs.
Okay. All right. So how about for the joy relief? What were the physical there?
Well, because the joy and relief were related directly to the first anger.
Okay.
In this particular, I felt my stomach go.
Okay. All right. So a
I felt,
release, if you will.
yeah, the release of that, and just lightness. Okay, this is great. This problem that was actually a pretty big problem, not life threatening or anything, but a big roadblock in something that Michelle and I wanted to do.
Hmm.
It's gone. It's so, you know I don't know if yay is an emotion, but whatever that uh,
Okay. All right.
stinks.
So what I want to take you through then is first for our audience, if you feel comfortable, and if not, we'll pause this and we'll pivot. But I think you're going to feel comfortable in whatever way you can do it in honoring anybody else. Can you tell us about the situation that was around those emotions?
Okay, Michelle and I we wanted to do a home equity loan because we
Hmm.
got to replace the deck and there's some other stuff we want to do around. So process was just sailing along, and then we get a call from the person and they go, "You have a tax lien on your property." I go, "No, we don't," because we've always kept that up. And then so it showed up in the would that be the underwriters or whoever that person is in that process? It showed up on their report.
Hmm.
So it's on their report, but nobody could find it in real life.
Phantom.
Yes, but that phantom was going to stop us from doing what we wanted to do. And
Mm.
it was frustrating because I don't know how many hours between digging through on the internet, calling.
Mhm.
Oh, such joy to call the state government and the Franklin County, and it was very frustrating, and I was getting pretty angry to the
Okay.
point
All
where
right.
it was unhealthy.
All right. So you got that. And then I think you said the joy and relief connected to the same situation.
Yeah, we get a call from our person, and they go, "We found what's going on. That tax lien is for somebody that has a name almost like your wife."
Sorry.
Yeah,
At
okay, fine.
wow. Never.
I didn't ask questions. I just said
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. 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 Um, and I love this because you're talking about real life stuff. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
sure there's probably somebody out there in the audience that has gone through a process of closing a loan or, getting a line of credit or whatever, and there's been some, way out of
One
whack situation.
one of the lines is just a little bit wrong, and it stalls the whole thing.
Interesting. We've all been in those situations, right? And I think what I'd like to do, if you feel comfortable, Jeff,
Hmm.
and you may not have done this before, and I'm full transparency. I've kind of just been starting my intentional journey about paying attention to these physical cues. Um,
Hmm.
so, do you find in that process, right? And I know in a previous episode, maybe it's the one just before this one is released, we talked about the KCG process
Hmm.
and all of that. Um, have you examined the connection with how you're feeling physically with the emotion? Does it help amplify the message? Does it, or what does it do for you?
For me, it's very important that I do that because, as I mentioned before, I deal with uh, panic attacks, a panic disorder,
Hmm.
and part of my process every day is I do, I guess, a body inventory. So
Yeah,
I'm really aware for myself of these feelings that show up. So
that's great. Um, and this might be a question that you're going to say, Eric, you already know what I was going to answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
okay,
Do you think that body inventory could be effective for people who even people that don't have a panic attack
yeah,
or
you know,
have a condition?
I do it daily because it's
Hmm.
an ongoing thing. But I think if and we talked about this too in the other episode, this doesn't have to be something that takes hours to do.
Right.
If you're, if you're confronted with something, and in this case making you angry, take a minute, a few seconds, and just kind of go head to toe and just, what am I feeling? And that'll
Yeah.
tell you. You have to know yourself to be able to do this, but that'll tell you, um, I have something I need to pay attention to. This emotion that
Yeah.
I'm feeling, like we talked before, it's giving me information, and that information is coming across in this case, my body's reacting to it. So
Well,
just
in
take a
some cases, I think, Jeff, the body operates like an amplifier.
minute. Hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
it pushes out the sound so that you can't miss what's being communicated. Obviously, in the case if you're a guitar player and you're playing the chord, the object is for that chord to be heard by an audience, right? And in this case, we're the audience.
Hmm.
Um, and you said something there, and I'm going to come back to it about the idea about paying attention. But I promised you I would play the game with you, not
Okay.
just for you. So my emotion that I kind of even leaned into even yet today was jealousy.
Okay.
And what I felt with jealousy was a mixture of tension in my core. So maybe that stomach area. And then I also feel it tension in the back of my neck.
Okay.
And it has a blended flow to it. And the flow is initially there's this you know how a dog when it gets aggressive how the hair will kind of stand up, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
felt that was kind of that sensation because I'm feeling there's a threat, right? And then I moved into it was a guilty kind of mode because I really had no reason to feel jealous. It was rooted around a story I had begun to tell myself in my head that I made up, right? And then I'm kind of navigating, okay, and Jeff, I can't tell you how important this idea of the awareness, the recognizing of pattern, right, has helped me. And it does here in this situation. Because once again, those emotions are trying to communicate something to me. That physical is that amplifier to make sure that all that's possible, that I'm not going to ignore it, right?
Hmm.
Because the Eric of 20 years ago would have just rushed right by it. Like, put it in the cabinet, put it underneath the door, put it in the trash can, just keep moving. Because I wouldn't want to face it. I'd be like, quasi, I don't want to feel that. Um, and I would have also probably have fed the story later on in the day, right? So you take another
Hmm.
cue. Somebody says something, somebody does something, and then you're like, ah, okay, I remember that story, a la my brain is going to bring it back because, hey, my brain remembers that's a threat. So, boom, the story is replayed in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, fortunately, we're not talking back 20 years ago. We're talking about today. And today, what I was able to do was to move much faster past it, right?
Mm.
I listened to the message, I felt the physical, and then I did my analysis or my audit of, okay, is this true? Is this really true? No, that was the beginnings of a story. Time to move on here. And Jeff, for our audience, I really hope that they will grasp this episode toward taking captive these processes so that they can be healthier and they're not carrying so much of this weight with them on and on and on.
You know, one of the things that something you said in that made me think of this. These things are going to happen. Your reactions are going to happen. That's perfectly normal. That's expected. You're human, but
Yeah.
it's what you do. Like we
Yep.
talked about earlier. Are you responding? And that the response is part of the response is recognizing what's happening, what's going
Yeah.
on. And
Yeah.
it's perfectly normal to have this, to be jealous or to be angry. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And notice, and I'd say as well for everyone out there, I didn't say that, man, I felt so bad for feeling jealous, right?
mm-hmm,
No, I don't feel bad about feeling jealous. Okay, I had nothing to feel bad about because that jealous was communicating something to me.
mm-hmm.
It was something that needed my attention. And that's where I'm going to kind of come full circle back. You mentioned about paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
How valuable, how important is it for us to be paying attention, Jeff, to what's going on inside of us like this? Maybe, and I'm not saying that to say people should see it just like we do or, whatever. I'm just saying, what's the value in paying attention in your mind?
If you're not paying attention, you don't know what. Okay, this is going to sound cliche again, but you know, if you're not paying attention, you don't know where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm not paying attention, I don't know where this is going to go if I don't know where I'm starting from.
It
You
kind of
know,
reminds me of the situation. I know I've done it. Maybe you have too, where you're on a freeway and you miss your exit,
mm-hmm,
and it was because you were lost in thought or you were distracted by, something, mostly thought, but
mm-hmm.
uh, you know, not paying attention can get you into trouble.
Yeah. And so you can, okay, there's two ways to react. Yeah, there's a way to react and a way to respond.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, some people will react with, there's my exit, zoom across all the lanes and try to make it.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
reaction. Okay. We
Uh-huh.
don't want that. Okay.
Yeah.
The response is, I missed my exit. I'll just go up to the next one, do a Yui, and come back. So, real world example.
Yeah. And in my case, right, with jealousy, the reaction, if I were to have reacted, I probably would have accused and I probably would have sort of cross-examined and lectured because again, this episode is not about stories. I know I did one solo not too long ago, Jeff, about storytelling and the
Mm-hmm.
stories we tell ourselves. I think that is one of the key strategies is really, you talked about doing the body inventory, doing
Mm-hmm.
the story inventory, checking those stories. Have you allowed a story to take up residence in your head where your brain calls it up at every point, or are you
Which
able to hold it at bay or have
which
it
part of
hold it
you
accountable?
which part of you is writing that story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it
Exactly.
like, Is it my reactive self or my responsive self?
Well, and here's the other thing: is the story valid? Is it still relevant? I mean, Jeff, it's kind of a connector. I've made it no secret in our episodes. I've had issues, fear of abandonment. Well, jealousy and abandonment are not too far from each other. They may even, I almost would say, they might live next door to one another, right? Because,
So, so let's say the abandonment thing. Is your story coming from 30 years ago when it actually happened, or is it coming from today where you're thinking about the 30-year-old story?
Well, and Jeff, great observation, because if thankfully my health has improved at such a level that when this happened with the jealousy, I wasn't entertaining a story of abandonment for something that happened 30 years ago. And I'm grateful for that. But I think it's also, it can be as straightforward, and it can be hard, because especially if it's related to trauma or some other type of an event that has really hurt, is okay, it happened 30 years ago, but does it still have relevancy in my today? And for me, that would be a case of, okay, when was the last time you were abandoned, Eric? And what is it in your life right now that gives you a great deal of assurance that it's imminently possible now, right? And that's not to say, Jeff, that I think there is a way to prevent abandonment. That is part of the human condition. I was not the first. I certainly know there are other people that have experienced it in one form or another, and it might happen to me again. But those are typically events. They're not ongoing conditions and ongoing replicated. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like every day there's a huge chance of being abandoned, but if you're not careful, if your brain senses that there's a threat, it probably will pull that story back out and try to get it going, because it sees that as another way to protect. So as we close out, we started by talking about emotional literacy, and I think this kind of wraps in that world, right? That if we can get more and more knowledgeable about what the emotion is, what it means, what it's typically trying to communicate, and quite frankly, what are the physical sensations that come with it, I think it aligns us in such a way that we're going to be better able to handle those situations in relationships, especially, right? And to not, I mean, it's almost like a way of cutting off a really, really big problem early on. Because like in most situations, right? If you've got a leak, if you get it early, you kind of position yourself to where you're not going to have one day, hey, look, my basement is flooded, right? And I think about you and from the Motorhead perspective, right? There's something you heard, right? You're on the bike, you heard it, but then you said, that's probably nothing. And then you continue to say, it's probably nothing. And then boom, you've got something much bigger on your hands. So anyway, any final thoughts on what we talked about today?
No, I just appreciate all the listeners taking time to listen to us.
Yeah, it's awesome. And in that spirit, we look forward to the next time that we're together, everyone. Take care. Hi, everyone. This is Eric Pennington with the Spirit of EQ. I'm not introducing a new episode today. I'm here to tell you some things that might help you. Jeff, you're with me as always. So
yes.
How do people get in touch with us?
Well, the best way is just send us an email at info@spiritofeq.com.
That's awesome.
Jeff, I was also thinking about reviews, and I'm notoriously bad at asking for them, so reviews on all of the platforms wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
Do you think that'd be good?
I think that would be great because, one, that will help us learn how to make better ones. And it's always good for us
So
to hear.
we're not the perfect podcast hosts?
We're close.
Okay, all right, but
not,
still,
not totally
we want
perfect.
your feedback. We want your feedback.
But it also might let us know a new subject. Hey, we need to dig deeper into that.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Cool. We really appreciate that. As always, too, there is social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. Those also have mechanisms or options for you to be able to leave a comment, a like, or those kind of things. Just want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with us. Right, Jeff?
Right. We appreciate you all.
Thank you. Once again, we really appreciate you tuning in today. One of the things that Jeff and I want to bring to your attention as well is that when we created this podcast, it was not intended to take the place of a clinician. In other words, if you find yourself in a place where there's something deeper going on or something that you cannot solve on your own, we do recommend that you reach out to a clinician of some sort. This podcast is purely opinion-based, and it is rooted in the desire to help you along your path in whatever way we can. However, it is never going to replace, nor should it ever be looked at as a replacement for clinical help in any way. Thanks again for tuning in.